Elias didn't just build violins, he carved voices for the soul. In his small aromatic workshop, tucked away in a cobblestone alley of Vienna, he spent decades listening to the grain of the wood. To Elias, a piece of ancient spruce wasn't just lumber. It was a sleeping singer waiting for the right touch to wake up. He used no modern machinery, only hand planes and a secret varnish recipe involving amber and rare oils that had been in his family for generations. He was a man of quiet dignity, his ears tuned to the subtle frequencies of the universe. His life's work was the Sovereign, a violin intended to have a tone so pure it could move a statue to tears. He lived for the music, and for Elena, a brilliant, world-class violinist who was 30 years his junior. He saw in her the perfect vessel for his masterpiece's voice. He believed her when she said that her music belonged only to him. He didn't realize that Elena didn't want to play the music. She wanted to own the stage, no matter the cost. The betrayal happened on the eve of the International Music Festival. Elena had introduced Elias to Marcus, a high-stakes investor who specialized in commoditizing rare instruments. Together, they convinced Elias to let Elena test the Sovereign in a private hall. Instead, they staged a theft. They made it appear as though Elias's workshop had been broken into and the instrument destroyed in a fire. In the chaos, they framed Elias for insurance fraud, claiming he had burned his own shop to cover his mounting debts. The day his shop turned to ash, Elena debuted a newly discovered antique violin on the world stage, which was, of course, the Sovereign under a fake name and a darker varnish. She stood in the spotlight, receiving standing ovations, while Elias was left in a prison cell, his ears ringing with the sound of crackling wood and the cold, sharp laughter of the woman he had loved. For 6 years, Elias lived in a world of absolute silence. After his release, he moved to the high, misty forests of the Carpathian Mountains, a place where the wood for the world's greatest violins was born. He lived in a hermit's cabin, working as a woodcutter. He didn't speak to a soul. He only listened. He learned to hear the music in the falling snow and the rhythm of the mountain wind. He discovered a grove of trees that had been killed by a rare lightning strike, wood that was perfectly seasoned by fire and ice. In secret, he began to build again. But these were not ordinary violins. He called them the echoes, instruments that used the science of vibration to create a sound that felt like it was coming from within the listener's own chest. He was no longer just a luthier. He was the conductor of the unseen. While Elena became a global icon known as the Empress of the Violin, her stolen instrument began to fail her. A violin built with love cannot be played with greed. The Sovereign's tone began to grow thin and metallic. She was desperate to maintain her status. Meanwhile, a mysterious figure, known only as the Maestro, began to release limited edition instruments that became the obsession of the elite. Elias, hidden behind a network of anonymous foundations, had used the profits from his echoes to quietly buy the controlling shares of the very opera house where Elena was the star performer. He also bought the massive debts Marcus had accrued in his failed luxury real estate ventures. Elias held the strings of their lives, and he was finally ready to play his final movement. The Gala of the Century was meant to be Elena's crowning achievement, a solo performance at the Imperial Hall, which Elias now secretly owned. The hall was packed with royalty and critics. Elena stepped onto the stage, holding the Sovereign, but she looked pale. She felt a strange vibration in the floor. Suddenly, the lights shifted, and a giant screen behind her flickered to life. It wasn't a promotional video. It was an acoustic map of the violin she was holding. Elias's voice, calm and haunting, filled the hall. "A violin is a mirror of the heart, Elena, and yours has become a hollow shell." He revealed the microscopic chemical signatures, proving the violin was his stolen masterpiece, and he played a recording of her and Marcus discussing the insurance fire 6 years ago, a recording he had recovered from a hidden device in his old shop's charred remains. The audience gasped as the truth vibrated through the room. But the real shock came when Elias stepped onto the balcony. He wasn't wearing a tuxedo. He wore his old stained leather apron, holding a violin made of the lightning-struck wood. He didn't say a word. He simply drew his bow across the strings. The sound was so profound, so heartbreakingly beautiful, that the stolen violin in Elena's hands literally began to crack under the frequency. The varnish she had used to hide its identity peeled away in front of the cameras. The sovereign refused to sing for a thief in the presence of its master. Elena fell to her knees, the shattered remains of her career at her feet, while Marcus was arrested in the wings for the fraud that had started it all. An hour later, the hall was a tomb of silence. Elena remained on the stage, her expensive silk dress torn, clutching the broken pieces of the violin. Elias walked down the aisle, his footsteps echoing like a slow heartbeat. He stopped at the edge of the stage. "You thought you could steal the sound, Elena," he said softly. But the sound was never in the wood. It was in the silence between us. He handed her a small tuning fork. It was silent, but it vibrated with a perfect, unwavering frequency. "Keep this. It's the only thing in your life that will ever be in tune." He watched as she realized that she would never play another note of beauty again. She was a performer who had lost her soul, left to live in a world where her only music was the memory of what she had destroyed. Elias returned to his mountains, but the world didn't let him stay in silence. He turned his cabin into a sanctuary for young musicians who couldn't afford instruments, giving them his echoes for free, on one condition: that they play only for the joy of it. He lived to a great age, his workshop always filled with the scent of pine and the laughter of students. Elena and Marcus were erased from the history of music, their names synonymous with the discord of greed. The sovereign was never repaired. It was placed in a museum, a broken testament to the fact that some things are too sacred to be stolen. As Elias sat on his porch, watching the stars and listening to the harmony of the mountain night, he closed his eyes. The symphony was finished. The strings were at rest. The luthier had found his perfect pitch, and the music of his life was finally, beautifully, at peace. You can steal the instrument, but you can never steal the song. Elena thought she could burn the master's world and wear his crown, but she forgot that a stolen voice eventually loses its breath. Elias proved that the most powerful music is built on the foundations of truth and a heart that stays in tune with the soul. The final question: if your life was a symphony, would the audience hear a beautiful harmony of integrity or the hollow echo of a stolen melody? Thank you for being part of this masterpiece of resonance. If you believe that truth is the greatest music of all, subscribe to Whispering Pines Echoes. Until next time, listen to the silence.